But with the election now just days away, many people are feeling stressed out about the outcome. Today, experts are offering their advice on ways to combat these stresses over the rest of the election cycle. Drew Best spoke with a UW Health Psychologist today. He brings us the recommended strategies to cope with election stress.
The days are dwindling as we head toward Election Day, and the polls say former President Trump and Vice President Harris are neck and neck. UW Health distinguished psychologist Dr. Shyla Murgain says voters are feeling the pressure.
We're finding that there is an increase in a sense of polarization, us versus them mentality. We also find that the increased intensity surrounding the election season means that it's consuming more of our waking hours and can even contribute to sleep disturbance.
That polarization being seen in political ads every day on your TVs and your cell phones. Dr. Murgain says it is important to have stress management tools in place to cope with the stimulation.
It's a great time to get outside, exercise, connect with nature, practice some mindfulness to bring you into the here and now, or just simply have some sort of distraction. Maybe you do board games with your family. Maybe you engage in a hobby or watch a movie or read a book.
Murgain says the key to relief for voters is to focus on the things within their power.
Knowing we might have record turnout on election day, you might consider early voting, but having that plan in place and focusing on what you can control can allow you to stay resilient during this time.
On election night, Murgain recommends giving yourself breaks in consuming election coverage, as watching the votes continue to roll in or, quote, doom scrolling through political articles can provoke fear. She says taking positive action this election season can make a difference. I'm Drew Best for Action 2 News.